Hello Craftykins and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I am doing a journal with me. This was from a Junk Journal July prompt. It was a challenge hosted by Meg Journals on Instagram and YouTube, I guess. But this prompt was details. So basically, the way I approached this prompt was in like the technique of working on the page and not necessarily like an idea of what I wanted it to look like. You know, I just took my time a little bit more doing things I might kind of skip over normally. Like, you know, stamping that background. I did a little bit of stamping. I did some like more subtle layers. Like you can see that napkin I glued down on there. You can hardly really see that it's there, but it adds a subtle layer and texture to the page. And those are the little things that I did for this spread that I don't always do. After working on this page, I find myself doing that a lot more often because there's just such a great payoff when you put in that little bit of extra effort. So now I'm just going to create a tag to tuck into that pocket, starting with some wallpaper. This is one of my favorite wallpaper pieces that I have. So that wallpaper side of the tag I really ended up loving. And the back, though, I mean, you'll be able to see during this process, you know, how I kind of envisioned it looking, and it just didn't turn out the way that I wanted. So I like one side of the tag, and the other side, you know, it was some experimentation there, so it's not wasted time or anything, but you live and you learn. I really like this technique of tying a tag a little differently than if the punch is in the middle. This butterfly page is a printable from Ruby and Pearl. She has an Etsy shop, and I will leave that linked below in case you're interested. So this is another example of taking my time a little bit more and doing extra steps. Taking the time to kind of fussy cut the label out of the page it was on really has a huge impact. Inking the edges, you know, a lot of times has a huge impact. I'm not sure if I mentioned this already, but this spread was definitely, in that whole journal, one of my very favorite pages. And I really enjoy this style of journaling more than just like slap banging everything on the page. I don't know, just less detail oriented. I like the detail oriented look more, and I enjoy the process more. So I think this was definitely a turning point in my style, I feel like. So this is some chiffon ribbon I have. I got it off of Amazon, and I thought, you know, using that, like pasting that onto the tag, there's like a little piece of like I'm not sure what it's called, like the edge of a yard of fabric, like the extra thick edge. That's what that other sliver of material is there. Again, another fussy cut element. And then adding a little bit of this lace. So if the tag had turned out just like this, I would have been happy. But here I go with the part I kind of regret is the stamping. I don't like the color that I used. Maybe if I had used black or something, I would have liked it better. But yeah, it just kind of muddy. It just kind of looks muddy and dull to me at the end of this whole process. This is where the real mud begins. These are some kind of like lace stamps. And I really like those stamps. But again, the color that I chose just wasn't working. So I just took those papers over to my sewing machine and stitched them together. Again, an extra step that I wouldn't typically think of or do on a typical junk journal spread if I'm just working down in a normal sort of session of journaling. Now for this facing page, I'm starting with another napkin for the first layer. I really like using them because they add texture and they kind of dull down the page underneath while still being transparent. You know, you can still see the detail of whatever's underneath it, but it just adds a little something to the page that I typically enjoy. I like using napkins, and I also like using tissue paper for the same kind of effect, or deli paper, anything that, or vellum even. Not so much for the texture, but it just gives it like almost a little bit of a foggy effect. Again, I've taken that to my sewing machine to add some stitching and attach that bit of lace ribbon. Inking up the edges again. It's all in the details. So here is a tea bag I dug out from my stash, and I chose it because the color coordinated so well with that other paper I'd already chosen. But when I staple it on and I turn it over, it literally says something about details on the back of that tea bag, which I thought, oh my gosh, how perfect. Serendipity for sure. So these grid washi tapes I found on Amazon, pretty cheap. They're great quality and they are pretty neutral as well, so they add a great touch to any journal page. And as a finishing touch, I just fussy cut this girl out of that white border, and voila! Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.